Hi, everyone. Welcome to What Are You Bringing? A weekly podcast with your new best friends, Jen Pastiloff and Alicia Easter. We are here in the kitchen of my dear friend, Dr. Safiya Noble. And I almost said no bullshit motherhood. Dr. Safiya no bullshit.
Always plug in your IGs, Pastiloff.
I know it. Dr. Safiya no bullshit. And Dr. Safiya Noble is a really big deal.
Kind of a big deal. People know her.
I know you, so that makes me a big deal.
This is her year, and in fact, we are recording this episode for the WRAP, for the Power Women Summit, and the title of this episode is Own Your Worth. Dr. Safiya Noble wrote this best-selling book called Algorithms of Oppression: How Search Engines Reinforce Racism. She is a professor of, I'm going to let her share the exact title because I'll butcher it, at UCLA.
A lot of titles.
Yeah.
I know that's right. You better bring all these titles.
I have many lines of titles.
You better bring all these titles.
City Associate Professor of Information Studies and African American Studies. And I also co-direct the UCLA Center for Critical Internet Inquiry.
Wow.
Yeah. It's kind of a tongue twister. You got to get a lot of...
And you're also a mommy.
Inquiry. And I'm also a mom and a best friend, spouse, partner, and a stepmom, bonus mom, daughter, best friend, cousin, sister.
Love that. And you're human.
Human.
I love it.
Person.
So before we dive into this week's episode about owning your worth, I'm going to give a quick background story of how Safiya and I met, and it's one of my favorite ways of meeting people. Actually, it's those people you meet in your life where it's almost like you've known them before, right? So it literally can take 1 minute, and you're like, oh, you're my people. I actually have the text you sent me that night we met. So we were both invited to the Decatur Book Fest 2019. Both of us had books that came out.
Shout out to Atlanta. I'm from Atlanta.
And Safiya had been invited to this really cool dinner. I was not invited. My friend Marley Grace was invited. I was on a panel with her, and she was like, "Do you want to be my date?" And I said, "Yes." And it was all these, amazing, famous writers. And
what was I doing there? Because everyone there was really, truly famous.
Because you are. You can't see yourself clearly, but because you wrote Algorithms of Oppression, and because it was Jenna Wortham. And she works with the New York Times, and she handpicked all these people. So I was there by default. And Safiya and I sat next to each other at dinner, and we were like, oh, we're in love. We're best friends now. Sure. I think that night we were like, did we just become best friends?
Yeah, felt like it.
And we found out we lived in the same city.
That was the incredible part. I was like sitting alone, and you showed mercy and came over and sat with me because real famous people were there. Like Ocean Vuong was there. Who is also a MacArthur genius, as you know, and is...
Yeah, it was all just like the it writers.
It was the it, millennial, New York Times bestseller.
Yeah, we were the oldest people too.
I was like somebody's mother up in there. I was probably like 10 people's mother up in there. I was thinking, what am I doing here? I was a nerdy academic, but Jenna had picked these books that she said had changed her life in 2019. And she picked my book, and I was so honored.
She did not pick my book.
It's fine. Your book was just coming out.
I know.
And I was sitting just kind of being a nerd at a table, and Jen, you felt sorry for me and came over.
No, you were cool. You were like a magnet. No, I honestly, it was like,
those are the people at the party that you want to know. You're like, okay, who is this
I was like mystery lady for sure.
That's sitting there. I mean, that's kind of you're a bigger deal because you don't need to circumnavigate the room.
I mean, that's one reading. That's a very generous reading. I'll take it. Fine. But you came and you sat down with me, and you just started talking, and I was like, oh, you're incredible. Can you just stay here all night?
I think you did say that, actually.
I might have.
You did say that. But literally that night, I got back to my hotel, and one of us texted each other, we would just become best friends, and we did. And so now we're here in her kitchen, in her beautiful home that I'm actually moving in with my family.
We're all moving in. I'm bringing the cats. Charlie's coming on weekends.
Everybody's got to
Aviv.
get tested, and then we'll be fine.
Oh, and Aviv's coming. Aviv's here, guys. You're gonna see him. He's running. He's running things in the background. So hi,
Rubenstein,
Aviv.
a beautiful, beautiful producer. So we just had lunch. Safiya ordered so much food. I said, "You're a Jewish mother."
She knew I was coming. Well, no, you said when I walked in, she knew you were coming. And so she ordered all this food. And I was like, oh, that's what we're doing today. Hello to you too, Jen. We're eating.
We enjoyed the food. And now
so
we're here
yummy. So yummy.
to talk about owning your worth. Before we dive into that, will you chat just for, wow, this book cover. So I'm looking at the book. It's called Algorithms of Oppression. You can buy it wherever books are sold. And it's the cover, if you're watching this on wherever you're watching, you can see it. But the cover is as if someone's typing in, "Why are Black women so blank?" to Google, apparently.
Yes, Google.
And all these things come up. Why are Black women so angry? Why are Black women so loud? Why are Black women so mean? It's very. How did you land on this cover? Just because it was.
It was one of the searches that I did as I was researching this book. I spent years looking at Google searches and image searches and all kinds of different products. And really what I was interested in was what happens when you are part of a minoritized community that can't use these logics, like what happens in a search engine is what, like society, right? Is what the majority of people are looking for. And I thought, well, that will never be fair for people who are 13% of the population. So that's not going to work. And then I started kind of really trying to unravel what happens in these technologies that people think of as like truth tellers or as knowledge stores or as fact checkers or as reality givers, And if you are in a vulnerable community, if you're a woman, I mean, I was mostly so stunned that women are highly represented by pornography or hypersexualized, sexually objectifying content, and we're in the majority of the population. So that also doesn't seem right. So the book is an exploration of kind of what does it mean when we turn over the alleged truth to these kinds of big advertising platforms that are really interested in making a lot of money off of some of the most like titillating kinds of content rather than on other kinds of truths or stories.
What sort of because when I look at this, when I look at the cover, it's all of these things I've been called several times in my life, and also kind of like I don't want to be too much of,
right?
So so for me to see this is like, I wasn't even. Like when Jen was looking at it, she was like, wow, but for me to sit back, I guess I've become desensitized to it. So did that happen to you throughout your research, or was it before?
There's a whole kind of through line in this book that's about the history of dehumanizing Black women. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a very important story to tell in this book because obviously the internet is here in 2020, but these ideas about dehumanizing Black women have been with us for hundreds of years, right. Really since the transatlantic slave trade, if not before. And I was interested in both kind of weaving in this story of what it means to normalize and desensitize the public to these ideas about Black women. And of course, how incredibly damaging this is, because it actually becomes then part of the rationale of the justification for disenfranchising Black women. And so there's a lot of research in this book about that too.
So wow. So in your, how do you, and because I'm the resident yogi, like hippie, I'm like, how did you keep your heart, mind, and soul intact while going deep like this?
That's a great question. I don't think I did. I found that while I was writing this book during those years, it was very depressing. Mm-hmm. It was, sometimes I had to just step away for weeks, or I couldn't look at another just, everyday pornographic representation of Black women and girls. And feel so powerless over being able to, I mean, Google's the most powerful company in the United States. It's in the top 10 most powerful companies in the world. It's scary to be a Black woman taking on and challenging a huge company like that. So there were
That's why we lit the I Am Brave candle.
So we lit thank you so much for this beautiful, beautiful candle.
You are so welcome. You're so welcome.
And that's really what it felt like. It was like, how do you generate the bravery? But the truth is powerful. And the truth of talking about why this is harmful in our society, not just for Black women, but for all kinds of women. The truth makes you strong, too.
Yes, the truth makes you strong.
I was in that place more than I was in a worry place.
Yeah.
I have to say.
Wow. The truth makes you strong. That really, that hits different than it probably would for me, I want to say probably 7 months ago, because to so much of our lives, everyone's life, I don't care where you are, shifted March 15th or whatever before, right? So everyone's lives had to kind of shift, and we were all confronted with truths that we had been evading because we had this event, we had to go on this tour, we had to go this and do that. So everyone's confronted with the truth. And if you deal with it, which I had to deal with it, it did give me fuel to step into my bravery and step into something that I've never done before. So
That's right. I feel the same way. I mean, I went back and got a PhD when I was 40. So I'd already had a career, a pretty long career in marketing and advertising, working for nonprofits. The mortgage crisis hit, the economic crash happened, and my company that I was working in and with, collapsed under the weight of that. It was a time to go back to school, not unlike this moment we're living in now, right? Just a true crisis. And I remember thinking, well, the most brave thing I can do is to live in my truth. And what I'd always wanted was to go back and get a PhD. And I wanted to just read books and talk and write. And I had no way to imagine how to do that. I mean, there's something about surrounding yourself with people who want it as much for you, if not more. And that was my husband, honestly. I mean, he knew when we were dating, he was like, I know you want to go back and get a PhD. And I was like, oh, I can't get off this corporate America. I mean, it's like a drug.
Yeah.
How are we going to pay bills? I can't live on $20,000 a year. We can't do it. And he was like, we can do it. We can do it. We can do it. So, we did it. And
we did it. I mean, look where we're sitting right now.
And you did it. I mean, when I met you, we were trying to buy a house. I thought I could never buy a house in LA. I'm not kidding. The LA is like one of the most expensive housing markets in the country, in the world. We know this. So many moments that when I think about where I started as a child, that I'm living in a dream of boldness that I couldn't have imagined. And that has happened by 1,000 touches and hugs and conversations and through my girlfriends. And, we squeeze each other, into the goodness. That's what it feels like.
You're just dropping.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, that's what.
Yeah, that's what
Jen and I we say are we people.
Yeah, we're we. We don't say I. We say we. We're doing this. We're coming up. And you're very much like that too. But you're what did you say? We squeeze each other into the goodness.
Yeah, it's like. Yeah. That feeling of it's like you always say, I got you. It's like a lifetime of I got yous in our communities that get us.
Yes.
I don't know. For me, it gave me the courage to really step out and try the things I really wanted to try. And I'm really grateful for it.
Amazing. I love that. This episode is called Own Your Worth. And I feel it's interesting because when I first came in, I said this book came out in 2018. Was that it?
Yeah.
And look at you having a huge year. You are. And it's 2 years after the book came out. You were just interviewed. You were just one of Time 100's People of the Year, interviewed by Meghan Markle and Prince Harry.
Well, to be clear, Meghan and Harry were their People of the Year. but they did shine some light on me, and I'll
Okay,
take.
fact
I'll take.
checker.
Hey, I will take a coattail light bulb from Meghan Markle and Prince Harry any day.
Cool.
Well, first, Megan gave a shout out to your book when she was talking to Gloria Steinem, and then this whole, domino effect happened. And then you did a campaign with Levi's, and so, but you and I had been at some point in the summer, because time doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
We've been really inspired by Rachel Rogers, who's going to come on the podcast.
Nice.
To join her club, We Should All Be Millionaires. I kept sending you the stuff, and finally you looked at it and you're like, oh my God, let's do it. And you and I both were like, this is our year. This is it. This is the year that we are owning our worth. And me coming to your house, because I haven't been here yet, really, I just feel, I'm like, yeah, we did it. I mean,
We did.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I really feel this way with my friends and people I love. Your success is my success.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
That's right.
over the moon for you, because I know you didn't grow up with money, and I know how hard it's been, and you have this beautiful home that's it's exquisite.
It's so inspiring to hear your story and hear because as someone who has recently taken a huge leap and decided I'm going to step away from corporate America, and I've been in thank you. I've been in corporate America, and I've, since for the last 15 plus years, sales, leasing, marketing. And I don't think I would have had the bravery within me had it not been for like my we people that I'm surrounded by,
Yes.
like Jen, and like new friendships that I've formed over the last like month, who has been like, I see this greatness in you.
Okay.
Let's go. Now is the time. And I'm just like toddling back and forth, like, oh, like, I don't know, just keeping that one little safety net. And at the end of the day, it's really not a safety net. It's just something that's just keeping you a tad bit cozy, but it's not really holding you, because what I found was this isn't holding me anymore the way it used to, because I know what it feels like to be held correctly.
Mm.
I know what it feels like to be held correctly. And once you realize how to be held correctly outside of your mother's arms, there's no going back.
Right.
And I lost my mom 18 years ago. And so for me to be, and she was an entrepreneur. I think I got it honest, like I got it real honest from her. She always had these entrepreneurial efforts, but she had to take care of my brother and I. And I'm like, okay, this is my time. I'm doing this. I'm saying yes. And let's go. And Jen's like, let's go. Let's do it. This is how we're, going to make it happen. And like, I have another friend, and he's like, this is what you need. This is like, let's go. I see it in you, and you have the drive, you have the want to. And so I love that you said squeezing the goodness, because that's what it takes to really leap, and knowing that, oh shoot, I'm not going to fall, because I have a gang of people that are not going to let me fall, because I'm not leaping to fall. I'm leaping to fly.
Yeah. I want to just say, I lost my mother 18 years ago too.
Oh, wow.
And that's such an interesting coincidence.
Yeah.
I think when my mom was alive, I was 32 when she passed, and I was really I was deep in corporate America and my career, and I remember always feeling like that I needed to take care of her and help my dad, and just there's a kind of safety if you have a positive relationship with your mother, mm-hmm. that can be really it's like a womb that you stay in even when you're an adult emotionally. And I remember the grief really incapacitating me for a long time. And I still find it's fresh.
Oh,
it's like I remember after my mom died, a girlfriend gave me a book called, the cover said Motherless Daughters. And I was like, whoa, I am not ready for that.
That's my friend. That's our friend, Hope Edelman.
Yeah. I still, 18 years later, I still can't crack the spine on that book. It's like, I can't relate to myself in that way. Or like there's something in that that's just too powerful. Mm-hmm. But I will say that, I don't know if she's helping from the other side, but there is something opened that I'm sure if my parents were still alive, I might not have been as bold on a certain level. It's like there's something where I think my mom even knew when she was ill in the kind of end weeks and months that she would make a space for me to make space for myself because I was holding so much space for her. And that's a blessing that didn't feel like a blessing for a long time, do you know? But now it's like I do feel held from the other side in a way that
I do too.
I
really do.
you know?
and
I know.
I mean, well, yeah, that's interesting. My mom died 5 days after my birthday. And it was like she knew that and I actually just came to this awareness, I want to say a year ago, where it was like she had to pass away in order to free me, because she knows my heart would have been there and taking care of her, doing what, like, I used to not call myself a merciful person because I mean, and I think that's when my mom died, this switch happened to me where it was like I would come into contact with people. It was like, well, just figure that shit out. Your mom is here. Why is your life so hard? And it would be, and it wasn't my intention to come across as harsh. It was just like, you have the support, figure it out. But my mom, what I'm realizing in all of those lessons in that little bit of time that we did have together towards the end of her life, it was like, I'm just now picking up those cheat codes that she was dropping, those gems she was dropping for me as I was a teenage asshole, and not like, and just a pain in her butt. But like, I'm realizing now that I am here because of the power of praying mothers and grandmothers.
Oh, Lord, say that again. Yeah.
I mean, straight up,
right. I know.
Straight up, because I didn't start grieving her until 6 years after she passed. And then it was really the process of it now. Like, I know without a shadow of a doubt that she's like with me and guiding me and putting these angels in my life that are just like, where did you come from?
Well, it's like the grief. I mean, this is something we share in common, is like the, and I think all humans, who have had the privilege of true like love and attachment with their parents, we feel the profound grief. And there is also, I think of it as like the Everest of my life, like the greatest mountain that I've ever climbed is kind of climbing my way through the grief. And then you're kind of at a summit that's remarkable. So, those valleys are made by the height of the mountains. And that was something that, my mom taught me. And I really learned that through working through. And I think writing this book was even about writing through kind of the, the gifts that she left behind and, trying to put a lot. So I spared a lot of readers in this book the kind of some of the backstory, but in my dissertation, I had a very long kind of like thank you section, up front. And I can barely read it myself. It kind of still makes me cry. So, I think our putting and pouring ourselves into these things matters.
Ooh, where can I see that dissertation?
I'm not giving it to you. It's not.
Tell us about the impetus to writing the book. So it was your dissertation and you turned it into a book, or?
Yeah. So a lot of people who write dissertations, who get PhDs, many humanists in particular, some social scientists will turn that dissertation into a book. The dissertation doesn't look anything like the book. I kept writing and kept collecting, research and data for that for what it turned into. But yeah.
And it's so, I have a funny story. NYU Press published it. So the other day I was taking a nap. I've been dealing with migraines. I'm laying in bed and my phone rings. New York University. And I was like, that's weird. Never in my adult life. I went to NYU. I dropped out. If you read my book, I had 1 year left. But like, since I've been an adult, back then there was no cell phone. So I've never seen NYU come up on my phone. Hello, NYU? Well, I was like, so I have this fantasy and I have been very open about it that NYU is going to offer me an honorary degree.
They are,
and
aren't they?
I go, are you calling to offer me an honorary degree? I mean, I can ask about that, but we're actually asking if you want to donate some money. I was like, of course. I told Robert, NYU called. He goes, they wanted money. man. I mean, I really got excited. It was so silly. I was like, oh my God, my dream's happening and my you's calling.
That's going to be the next call, girl.
It might be.
I mean, this will go viral, right? So let's talk about search engines. How do we make this go viral?
Exactly, right?
See how I did
It's
that?
it's an advertising platform. So I guess that's the way. A little bit of money.
So what can we do, just average people using search engines to combat this? I mean, combat, I suppose, isn't the right word, but what would be the right word? To realize more that we're in the fishbowl?
Listen, I mean, this is where your work, the two of you, around a real mindful kind of engagement with the internet is important.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people mindlessly engage with these technologies, take a lot for granted about their stability, their reliability, their truth telling. Sure, if you're trying to figure out where's the closest Starbucks, it's going to be pretty reliable. When you start to ask more complex questions, like of anything, it starts to get more complex and nuanced. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. My students at UCLA will often tell me that they could never write papers for their classes without Google, which is the wrong thing to say to the professor who wrote the book about
That's so funny.
Google. It's fine. They don't know. They don't know. And, I try to do things like reroute them back to the library.
Yeah.
What's a library?
They're like, that's where I nap. And I'm like, there are actually books in there, not just couches. So,
I mean, isn't the experience so different? Like, think about, so I was in NYU in the late 90s, and, you're a few years older than me. Like, our experience was so different. The internet was just new.
Internet wasn't, when I was at Auburn, it wasn't like, let me go and Google this. It was like, okay, I think it was, it feels like forever ago.
Well, we had Ask Jeeves I remember Ask Jeeves.
Yeah, Ask Jeeves. Oh,
but it was it was like the library and the card catalog. Is that what you call it?
Yes. The library was lit. You wanted to be in the library.
It still is, but it's so, the internet has made me so lazy.
Isn't it interesting?
Yeah, it's weird. I was like, I'm not a map person anyway. I'm confessing I am terrible at maps, but so like GPS, that's wonderful. I love it. But it's made me so just like constantly like ask the internet. There's never it makes me feel lazy a lot.
Yeah, I think we have to keep certain kinds of muscles working and certain types of neurons firing in our brain. And so that's, those like synapses firing. So, I try to do things with my son, for example, like not Googling it.
How old is he?
He's 9.
9. That's what I thought.
So I'll say things like, why don't you bring that up in class with your teacher? Because I think this process of like human engagement, or I will share with him and then my husband will give a take. Then I'll have to look at Otis like, that's not the right answer. And then, then he gets to see that
human dialogue.
And knowledge is contested, or there are many points of view. That's one of the things that's so important, especially for kids, that they understand that expertise comes with a lot of knowledge and it's deep and it's not just like a surface and it's not instant gratification. For some things, sure. But for most things that are of a social nature, not so much.
So it's like everyone watched The Social Network. My friend Swan did a funny drawing. She goes, I watched The Social Network and I came back to Instagram to tell you all that I watched The Social Network. And it was a funny drawing, but I feel like everyone watched that and was like, I'm done. And then like 2 weeks later, it's like,
oh, I never said I was done. I was like, listen, it is what it is. You just have to be, like you said, be mindful about what you're doing, be mindful of what you're posting, be mindful of how you engage, and realize that a lot of people, this is their only way of socially connecting with anyone on any given day. And just thinking about how I approach it is like, I love the social component of it. I love being able to meet new people, meet new friends based off of it. I do my best to use it for its initial reason, and then realizing like, okay, the platform slowly moved to a marketplace, and and having and having, and recognizing, okay, this place is now a marketplace. Okay, so I have a couple businesses, so let me just use it for what it's moving to now and not be begrudged by it because it's changing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the commercial web as we know it, the modern internet of the past decade, is a commercial space. That's what it's designed for. And that's not a replacement for other kinds of
Right.
Yeah.
knowledge spaces, reliable information spaces, trusted facts. Those things are really important. I mean, to me, they're fundamental to democracy, to civil rights, to human rights, that we agree upon what is an atrocity, what is a violation of rights.
Yes.
These things are very important. So we have to keep some vantage point on what's at stake if we kind of abdicate or cede. We don't want the libraries and the schools and the universities to close because we have Google.
Right.
And you'd be surprised how many people will argue, what do we need a library for when we have Amazon?
Wow.
I mean, we don't want that kind of society, right? So that's what my book and other kinds of books like this are trying to convey.
Can you tell us a little bit about the $2.9 million grant that you, and I'm spacing on your beautiful friend.
Oh, Sarah Roberts.
That you received, and what, she's the one I met, right? At Mexico that day,
Yeah.
That you received. Tell us what it, I mean, first of all, congratulations. Talk about owning your worth. That, I got teary-eyed. Every time you share me something, you send me something, I share it. You're like, I didn't send it to share. I'm like, I'm sharing it because I'm so proud. And I'm like, that's a chunk of change.
Yeah.
So what's it for? And tell us about that.
Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about Sarah. So Sarah is like my, I don't know, she's my closest collaborator. She's also a professor at UCLA. We also went to graduate school together. So we've been on this ride for the whole time that we've been becoming academics. And Sarah is most well known for her work on, she did the first big academic study of commercial content moderators, which are the people who look at all the atrocious, horrible stuff and take it off the internet before we see it.
Okay.
It's psychologically damaging, beheadings, mutilation. I mean, the worst of the worst, neurologically damaging to the people, psychologically, emotionally traumatizing work. And so that's her area of expertise, is studying the people who do this kind of work. And when I was writing Algorithms of Oppression, she was writing her book called Behind the Screen. We were writing them as dissertations. Very few people believed like that there was a there. Like, you know what I mean? You know what it's like when you're like, I see a thing that is happening. And I was saying, there's something not right with these search engines and the way people are using and talking about them. She was the same about, there's actually people involved, and the internet is not a free speech zone the way you think it is, because there are all these people taking down content that we don't know about. Why are they secret? Why are they hidden?
Yeah.
And when we were doing this work a decade ago, people would just say, like, that's not a thing to us. And we were like, no, we're doing research on this. This is a thing. And they're like, it's not a thing. And this happens to
now you're like,
many...
you're showing them your $2.9 million.
No.
It was a thing.
But you have to know this backstory, because this is actually about knowing your worth. We felt in many ways when we were, first of all, we were older women when we were in graduate school. Here I'm the Black woman, she's the gay woman, and we're of age, let's say. And so we're already kind of not fitting in certain ways. And then we're studying these really niche kinds of things that also nobody even thinks is a thing. And I remember thinking, like, this is so hard. Like, that we should be more supported. And I mean, we were really supported by our advisor, but there wasn't a culture of support for asking hard questions around power, around racism, around sexism, around degradation, dehumanization, and the internet. There were only a handful of people doing that. So we said, one day we're going to start a center, and we're going to have like a beacon for the students and the researchers and the activists and people who want to do that, because we know what it was like when we were trying to do that and we didn't feel supported. Wow. And so for 10 years, we've mostly not been supported. I mean, we've everything we've done, we've really done by just like the goodness, the squeezes, in the community. And And then we met a woman who was working for a big foundation in Australia, the Minderoo Foundation, Dr. Julia Powles.
Okay.
And she was like, I've been following your work, the two of you, for a long time. And I was like, have you? And she's like, I have. And we want to fund you. And
It makes you want to cry.
they
I love
gave
it.
us almost $3 million over 5 years so that we can do this work of research and policy advocacy and culture shifting for the most vulnerable people who are affected by digital technologies. And it's really, really transformed our outlook about the possibilities for our research. And of course, as this has happened, you know, it's been amazing to see
Your mom is so
many
proud
more
of you.
people
Wow.
interested
Yeah.
in this work.
That's,
Yeah.
oh
It's
my
incredible.
God. That's incredible.
It's incredible.
That is that you were like, you know what? There is something here and y'all are not going to stop me just because you don't understand it. I'm still going to continue on and doing my research, doing the study, staying up late, going, you know, not getting much sleep, and really just like charging ahead. And what a great example you are to your son and, you know, like everyone, you know, in your life that's cheered you along the way.
I do feel like the whole community of people in the world doing this type of work, we're just like, how do we really truly responsibly steward these resources to make more opportunities for other people doing this kind of work? Because the truth is, at the end of the day, we need policies, we need a culture shift, we need protections. So many of these kind of internet-based technologies, whether it's predictive policing, an algorithm predicting whether you get healthcare, an algorithm determining whether you get a kidney transplant if you're Black, right? Did you see this recent story where Black people were less likely to be predicted into kidney transplant lists because they use software and algorithms, certain type of predictive markers that preclude African Americans from being as likely to be considered. There are so many different ways in which these types of kind of AI are becoming so normalized, and they're really going to have a profound discriminatory impact in our societies if we don't pay attention and we don't get public policy and we don't educate people about them. So I feel like that's what we're trying to do at UCLA with this center.
So for us, like
talk about
people listening and us here, what do we do to get more educated on policies and
vote for people who think about these things, who care about these things, get involved? So many of the, it's so interesting. Things like bans on facial recognition. You know, there's a great new movie that just came out called Coded Bias by an amazing filmmaker, and Shalini, and her. It follows a student researcher at MIT, Joy Buolamwini, who was part of a team who did a study on the way that facial recognition software doesn't see Black women's faces, right? Black people's faces. It's the worst when it comes to Black women's faces, okay, in terms of reliability. And she and Timet Gibru and another researcher, Jessica, whose last name escapes me, they did this really important study called Gender Shades. And this film, Coded Bias, is actually all about their research. It's really a great film and people should watch it. It just came out and it like had a nationwide release last weekend. And one of the things that's so interesting in that film that I love that they uncover is how, for example, the beta testing, trying out where these things work or where they fail, usually happens in Black and brown communities on the most vulnerable and poor people. So for example, in New York, they go and they trace how Black women living in low-income housing were having, their landlords were starting to install facial recognition systems where you had to have a face scan in order to get into the building. Now we know this is where Joy, shows up and she's like, but hold on a second. This software doesn't even see Black people's faces, especially Black women.
Make it make sense.
Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. So there's so many of us doing these kinds of studies that really show what happens, and where people are taking action is at local levels. So where you see, for example, bans on facial recognition now is starting to happen, like the city of San Francisco ban the use of facial recognition, right? You're starting to see, so people should get involved locally.
So I really I'm so glad we're doing this for the Wrap because this has it's going to have such a far reach. I want everyone to share this episode, to take notes, because especially if you see these bans on facial recognition, now you know why. Now you know why.
Yes.
Well, so my question is, we understand. How do you make this understand? How do you make someone who might not necessarily trust and get what we're talking about believe that it exists, even if it is something that's, as a Black woman, a Black or brown woman in a low income community that might not understand the ramifications of facial recognition?
Fishbowl analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, I mean, I think when we just truly, I believe that the people who are smartest about the harms are the people who are experiencing the harms.
Yeah.
So, I was on this panel with a good colleague, Virginia Eubanks, who wrote this amazing book called Automating Inequality. And it's another important book. There's I will tell you flat out, the reason we know about the harms, all these different kinds of harms, do you hear the names? Sarah, Virginia,
Women.
Joy, Timette, Safiya. They're almost all
Will you
women
give
who
us
have
a
been at
reading
the
list to
forefront.
accompany
You
this?
bet, you bet, of
Yeah.
course. So many women of color and LGBTQ people have been at the forefront for the last 15 years of pressing on what is at stake for the most vulnerable in our society who are getting these things tested. One of the things Virginia found in her work was that these kinds of predictive software that's determining whether a child is going to be taken out of the home and put into foster care, for example, whether you get benefits, so any kinds of social welfare benefits, right? Whether they're health, food. I grew up on food stamps, so that's what we used to call them because they actually were stamps.
Yeah,
but now it's like a EBT card. All these different kinds of. The women and the people who are most likely to see that something's wrong here.
Yeah.
My benefits aren't working out, or I'm being precluded. Some software keeps screening me out of being considered for jobs. There's something happening here. It's actually, believe it or not, those are the people who know the most.
Okay.
So we have this idea that poor people don't know. Actually, poor people know better than anyone. I always tell this joke when I'm talking in Sarah's class, to her students, where I'll say, we didn't need a predictive policing algorithm to know where the cops were going to be deployed. You could just ask the brothers on the corner.
Yeah.
They always know where the cops are going to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
we know. So that's your predictive algorithm, is the community that's being surveilled. We know what's happening in our communities. And unfortunately, what these software systems do is they take things like data from the past. So let's say here in LA, if you take arrest data in Los Angeles, New York, Detroit, Chicago, any city, Fresno, anywhere, and you say, well, these are the neighborhoods, these are the pockets where there have been a lot of arrests. So we take that data and we put it into our algorithm. We train our machine learning algorithm to help us predict where we should deploy police. Well, anyone who knows that's lived in a neighborhood where too many police are rolling through your neighborhood, there's going to be more arrests than in places where police are not rolling through. So what you're doing is you're taking these racial profiling, poor people profiling practices of the past, and you're just encoding them and you're predicting them right back into the future. That is not an intervention. That actually makes these problems so much more opaque, so much harder to grab a hold of and undo. And these are the kinds of things that, in every domain now, we're seeing this: education, finance, healthcare, policing. These are the things to me that everybody should care about, because everybody's kids, everybody's families, none of us are going to be, exempt from these profiling types of software in all these different domains. It's important work. It's important to care about.
Yeah,
how have you been adapting, I suppose, your work at UCLA and all the other work you're doing during COVID, and like everyone else, I guess? I'm
like everyone else. This is a treat to have you all here, because we've been so locked down for the most part. And
I know I almost cried. It's like this weird it's a relief. You know, I've been so
Yeah.
lonely.
Yeah.
And so you see someone and it's like, oh,
know.
I'm
No,
so
I live
emo-
alone, so I'm like,
Oh.
oh, I have 2 cats, but I was like, I live
Yeah,
alone.
yeah.
I'm like, yay,
Yeah.
we get to go and
I
see
know.
friends.
It's I think I'm doing like everyone else, which is just trying to keep going with work and life. I'm trying to be a 4th grade teacher. I'm trying to figure out what's happening, with my job and how is that changing. I have been able though to say yes to so many more speaking opportunities. I mean,
To this.
I like to this,
Yeah.
anything, especially that would require travel because I've been trying
Yeah.
not, my son's at an age now where I just kind of like don't want to be gone all the time. And so I feel like I'm able to say yes to a lot more things because I'm just like sitting at that table over there, just
Isn't
with the
that an
same
interesting sort
background,
of silver
doing
lining
everything.
that's come
Yeah.
along with, I mean, there's been so many horrible things,
Yeah.
but there have been so just really beautiful things.
Yeah.
And I really am excited for you because it feels like a lot of really good things are happening for you right now, so deservedly, and I think my hope is that with the Meghan Markle and the Gloria Steinem and the Prince Harry recognition that this book just gets in more and more hands. I'm guessing that's got to be happening.
I think so. I
Yeah.
mean, NYU Press tells me that it's been their top seller for 2 years in a row.
Okay, that's
We'll see.
amazing.
Wow.
Listen, okay, like I gotta give a caveat because you're actually, when I say a real writer, I mean you're like a real writer where you're on the New York Times bestsellers list and you're like a person, when you're a scholar, a runaway bestseller this is how I learned it when I was first starting out as an assistant professor. If you sell 300 books, solid showing. Well
yeah,
done.
baby.
Okay?
Yeah.
You're on the map. If you sell 800 books, runaway bestseller, blew it out. So, so the scale is really different when you're an academic. But I've sold a lot of books, way more than 800 now.
And so what your hope
awesome.
for this book, it seems to be coming to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, my hope for this work is that, first of all, that it's part of making a there about conversations that I think are important to have in the world. My hope is that I can use it to culture shift.
Yes.
So we live here in LA. I'm trying to envision, like, doesn't Tessa Thompson want to play me in the making of Algorithms of Oppression?
Absolutely, Tessa Thompson. Absolutely.
I love her so much.
I love it. And I have a friend who's like her doppelganger, so it's wild when I'm like,
That's amazing.
Oh
like,
my
when I'm
God.
like,
I've
it
already
is
picked
wild.
her. I know. I picked her in my heart.
Netflix, are you listening, Netflix?
It's fine. So, I mean, what I really want to do is use this book as the next dream, I would say, is to turn this into either a show or a film where I can also tell the story of all these incredible women and that I've been talking about.
That's so
and
you.
make them visible too. And I think it's very important because, I have a PhD in library and information science, and information science is really kind of a STEM kind of field. I mean, the part of it that I'm in, it can also be very humanities oriented. And I think, I was the only Black person in my program when I was doing it, and the only Black woman. I mean,
has that changed much?
No, there's probably 20 Black women in the United States, I'm guessing, who have PhDs in information science. So there is something about visibility that I think can help attract other people to want to come and be like, you work in these areas and you can care about this too. And so to me, that's what culture shifting is about, and representation is about, is to get people involved in then wanting to do the hard work too.
Yeah.
And so I'm, I don't know.
And so it is.
My thoughts.
And so it is.
Yeah.
And so it is.
Well,
I said that before you walked in.
Well, we have one more question before we wrap it up.
All right.
It's very important. What are you bringing to the barbecue?
I really, mac and cheese is my jam. That's like my number one. You see, I've got a lot of sweet potatoes here.
I can't wait.
And at this time of the year, I am also a serious baker. So all these counters are going to be covered with sweet potato pies, and we're probably just going to be doing some drive-by drop-offs here.
Are you so happy we're moving in? So we can
so
just come
happy.
down
And my birthday.
and have pie.
I know.
And have pie
Who
with
doesn't
coffee
want
with
mac and
mom?
cheese and pie? I don't know. That's all there is.
That
What I'm
sounds
here for.
delicious, and we cannot wait to experience all of that one day. We're going to get all of the guests together from that were on the show.
Oh, wow.
And we're all going to
Are we?
eat.
Is
Oh, that's
everybody
gonna be
bringing
good.
food? Because it doesn't.
No.
No,
Who
Tracy
would-
Stanley brought something.
Some people bring, what did Bishop Michael Curry, we're having him. Actually, he married Meghan and Prince Harry.
Oh
Look
my
at that, full
gosh.
circle. He's coming
We're
out
the
on
family.
Thursday. He's coming out on Thursday.
Yeah.
And,
Oh my gosh.
and then Meghan and Harry are coming on. He's coming out on Thursday. And he said he's bringing, what did he say? He's bringing an empty stomach and
Yeah, he's bringing an empty stomach.
a potato salad. And some people have said like empathy. Some
Yeah.
people have said like,
you can't eat
you know.
empathy like that. You know what I mean? you said to the barbecue. Did you say to the barbecue
Yes,
or
to
to
the
the table?
barbecue.
See, my ears heard to the barbecue.
Yeah, it's a
We did
barbecue.
say that.
It's at
We
the
did say
barbecue.
that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
he's going to bring his empty belly. Which I was like, okay, well, somebody make you a plate, Bishop.
Okay.
mac and cheese is my jam. So
I love it.
where, Dr. Noble, where can we find you? I mean, I will give myself some credit for getting you on the gram, getting you on the
Okay.
Instagram.
You knew I was on there. I had like 50 friends, and I was real private and locked down. So you did make me get a professional
Public,
Safiya-
a public.
a public. Thank you.
Instagram.
Safiya.noble.phd on Instagram. And although that's not my power platform, I am much more of a Twitter person. where
She's
I'm
Twitter baby.
at Safiya Noble, where all the nerds are, all the academics are on Twitter. And of course, we have our UCLA Center, which is C2I2.UCLA.edu.
Wonderful.
.ucla.edu.
Wonderful.
So just be with us.
Amazing.
Touch with
We will. Thank you so much for joining us. We love you. We
I love
can't wait to see how much more this flies
I
and you
can't wait.
fly. And we want to thank you all so much for listening and watching and checking us out. You can follow us on Instagram at WAYB Podcast. And the email, if you want to send us a long love note, waybpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you all so much.
I want to say one last thing, which is get the book wherever you
Yeah.
can get the book. But if you can, you get it from a Black-owned bookstore. Two of my friends. Shelves Bookstore is one, and Rachel Cargill has a bookstore called Elizabeth's of Akron. So either of those. Otherwise, get it wherever you can get it, but get it.
Yes.
Get it.
We love you.
Get it.
Thank
Love
you
you.
so much. Bye.